Adam, how's it going?
It's going, man. How are you, Ian?
I'm good. Good. Happy Friday.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's getting all of our on sales up now and it feels good.
Yeah, yeah. Busy season.
We're a year-round promoter. We actually just wrapped our big 2-day festival about 2 weeks ago, and so winding down from that and getting ramping back up into it's October, so it's October, baby.
Yeah, yeah, it is. How'd the festival go?
It was good, man. It's so we've been a partner in this festival. It's called Four Chord Music Festival out in Pittsburgh, 2-day
Okay.
pop punk music festival, and just wrapped with our biggest lineup this year with Blink-182, AFI,
Cool.
Jawbreaker, Jimmy Eat World. It was great, man. We just have like a lot of like the Warped Tour ethos around it, and it's all about trying to build a lot more of music discovery while trying to build like a lot of that pop punk nostalgia. It's a
Mm,
lot of fun, man. A lot of a lot of respect for all the. I also think of a shout out there, like a lot of respect for all the crew and like the ops and production folks that
yeah,
just put a ton of hours into making that happen, and it's just such a
yeah.
reward.
I'm curious, what do you enjoy? We don't pick favorite children, but what do you enjoy more, promoting club shows or festivals?
I mean, it's both, right? Like I can have two kids and love them both. But
Yeah, you can.
it's really cool to then the reason I said both is because it's really cool to kind of get to watch both worlds blend together, where it's
Hmm.
being at the club level and like really getting to see that band hit the stage and kind of realize the potential like right then and there, and then to
Hmm.
see watch that project grow. And it's really cool as a promoter that we've been around for probably what 17, 18 years, and a lot of our bread and butter is like in the club and theater space. And so like getting to
Yeah.
see bands at like the smallest level being able to grow through like from a 200 cap club to like a 600 to a 1,000, and now all of a sudden they're playing a festival in front of 10,000 people. We're starting to see that, and even especially on the festival too. Like it's really cool to get to see bands that are like starting the day on. We do two stages, but
Mm.
starting on our stage B, and then all of a sudden, 3 years down the road, they're headlining. They're either headlining or like close to headlining our main stage. So I'm looking at our lineup here and just looking at like, yeah, even like Hot Mulligan is like a band that just like we've done them a bunch, and like they've just really started to grow a ton. And so like
Yeah, that's awesome.
it's just really cool to see that potential and like to be a part of the artist trajectory.
I'm curious, actually, I'll take us on a tangent that you're not expecting. I was talking to someone recently about how difficult it is to target people attending festivals based on the artists that they like.
Hmm.
If you're purely a festival promoter, because like they don't really
Right.
know what people are buying for because they're just buying
Right.
tickets to the festival, and it's like, well, which of these 200 artists are they here to see? Or do
Yeah.
they just like the vibe? But do you guys find that you're able to kind of like use your club data to know who to talk to about which artists at the festival? Are you doing any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it's just like a lot like we tend to see that like a lot of people that are coming, well, mostly like they're coming for the experience of it. I mean, festivals like a festival versus a show is
Yeah.
a little bit of apples to oranges, but still in the sense of
Mhm.
like you're still building that experience for people, and like these are people that want to come at like right when gates open at noon to like discover their next favorite artist, because like that's always my favorite takeaway from it at the end of the year is like,
Yeah.
hey, who was like your favorite discovery? And we always find that it's like somebody that played at like 2 or 3 o'clock, and like, and they're
Hmm.
talking about them for the rest of the year. And so like that club mentality is still there. Like I think it's really important to find people that are like avid music enthusiasts, and because like the festival sits in kind of a little bit of a niche pocket with like the pop punk
Yeah.
resurgence, like a lot of that
Yeah.
came from the club world of people, that was the bread and butter of where I came from. I skipped high school. Sorry, mom. I skipped like seventh period in high school to go like hang out at Altar Bar in Pittsburgh, wait in line for shows, and like so I documented every moment from like the first band to the headliner. Like I just always tried to like walk away with something new, and I think that like a lot
Yeah.
of people that come to the festival are in that same headspace. And granted, this year we had Blink-182. Obviously, like people want to come to hear the hits, and there's like there's a good faction of those people, but there's still like
Hmm. Hmm.
this is a festival that's been developed for 11 iterations. And, we tend to see that it's like the same people coming back, and it's just now it's starting to like the word of
Hmm.
mouth is starting to pick up of, people telling their friends of, what a great experience they had and like the cool bands that they saw. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, that club data mentality, I think is like really like we definitely pull on that to get, the new up and comers a shot and to get people to experience something new.
Interesting. So like you're almost saying more so you're using the club data to figure out who to book into the festival.
Yeah, and I think because again, honestly, like even just utilizing, people may be surveyed out a little bit, but like we want to try to like have real conversations with fans that are coming
Yeah.
to the festival. Like I'm the one that like I'm out there messaging like while the fest is still going on, like I'm the one that's like messaging fans about like activations or like people have questions. Like I want to make sure that people feel
Yeah.
like they're being heard by real people, because again like the people that run this festival are the same people that are coming to the festival. Like we're all
Yeah.
music lovers at the end of the day. We just want to make sure that we can give back to people like what we're hearing too, because like we really feel like have a strong belief of the bands that we're putting on these stages. So I think it's important to like just build that relationship with the fans, because we're just in such a world where it's been harder to like get people to come out to shows a little bit more, and like there's for a plethora of reasons. But I think it's really
Mhm.
important of like if you can identify like who your super fans are and like make them feel, and not make them feel, but like they are heard and like you're
Yeah.
valuing them in some way, shape, or form. Getting a sense of like, hey, who do you want to have back at the festival next year? Like that conversation like isn't necessarily transactional. It's like it's valuable
Yeah.
for us. And yeah.
How are you sending that? Like over email, over SMS?
Yeah, it's so we've been trying to develop that strategy a little bit. This is the first year that we've implemented for the festival. We're doing it via just a survey link. Just kind of we want to just get a top
Cool.
level idea of
Yeah.
like, what did people like? What did they not like? How they hear about. But the other thing is like how do you hear about the festival?
Hmm.
Because there's just, there's traditional like digital outlets, but it's like, hey, did you hear it from a friend? Did you hear it on the radio? Did a band drop a shout out and you heard it from there? So just like really trying to
Yeah.
understand where the fans are and how they're finding out about it and what they're looking forward to.
Are you digesting that data back into your CRM to use later, or you just kind of aggregating it for results for whatever you're looking for in that context?
I think for the interim, I mean, for now, it's the latter. It's like to really just just have it in the aggregate to understand again, like what
Hmm.
are the commonalities, what are the things that we're missing too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like maybe it's hey, I really wish you had like this kind of food option available, or like
Right.
we heard a lot of feedback about and we've had it in the past, but it's like it's helped us understand like maybe it's a little more prevalent for next year of like, hey, maybe you guys should have caffeine, like have more caffeine options, because it's a 2-day festival. Like we need to stay awake the whole time. It can't just be all,
I feel that. Yeah.
beer. Can't be like beer and pizza.
Yeah.
So,
Need an iced
yeah,
Americano somewhere in there.
right, right, right,
Yeah.
right. So, and honestly, it's just, I try to make it a point to like walk around the festival throughout and just see, what's the general mentality. Are people like, are they smiling? Are they, upset? What, like understanding, hey, like the lines to the bathrooms are too long. Like, how do we improve on that operationally?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just small things that just help. Because again, like for me, at the end of the day, like I was mentioning before, like marketing isn't about necessarily, selling as many tickets as you can. It's about building an experience for the person that's coming, and,
Hmm.
building a real lifelong experience, and making sure that it's actually like of value to that person that's coming, because they're, at the end of the day, like they're spending their hard-earned money on something that you're producing. Like you want to give them the best
Yeah.
experience you can.
Yeah. What other strategies do you use to kind of build that conversation with the fan? Like, how do you like to kind of continually deliver value through that marketing?
I mean, honestly, the fans tell us, and we just really try to like we
Actually
try
listen.
to actually listen. Yeah, like I was just talking with our fest director to this morning about like a fan-driven Reddit community just popped up for the festival, and like it
Cool.
has 1,500 people that are already like heavily engaged and like
Oh, wow.
talking about it. It's like those are the conversations that like we need to be paying attention to, because like those are people that are giving like true and honest feedback. So
Hmm.
um really, and also just like analyzing like some of the like just looking at like some of the data trends around like what the buying patterns are like, because that helps us understand like, is there price hesitation on something? Because there's you can strategize as much as you can and build like marketing plans and ad plans as much as you can and execute them to the best of your ability as all marketers are. And at the end of the day, like there are some factors that are just outside of your control, but like having a better
Yeah.
understanding and like a 10,000 foot view of like, hey, how do we make sure that a customer doesn't feel priced out, or how do we make sure that like this is an
Hmm. Hmm.
accessible opportunity for them? Or again, like the one thing that's like just for the festival that's really cool is like we're starting to see like parents bring their kids out now, or when they
Cool.
were coming 10 years ago, like they were coming solo, or they weren't with their significant other, and like now they're bringing their kids out. So it's like, all right, now how do we inspire like the next generation to continue to come out and
Yeah.
keep have them thinking about, hey, remember when you were 5 years old and rocking out to Blink 182? Like we want them to be able to like pass that experience along. And so I think that
Totally.
really just like listening and observing and being able to, consume all of that, while it's really daunting sometimes. I think, moving with the intent of like not feeling transactional, but it being again just more conversational. And so like again, that's why I'm like, I love being the person that's, answering customer service emails. And we have like trying to have a team around just like actually having those conversations. Cause again, like we don't want it to feel like somebody's talking to a robot, like they're talking to a real human being. Like I love going to shows all the time. And like, I want that person on the other end to feel the same way that I do.
I love that. Awesome. Well, we could go a few directions from there. I'm curious to maybe just like stay on the CRM thread and get back into some of the
Mhm.
shit we were talking about before
Yeah.
when we forgot to hit the record button.
Yeah.
But you were kind of emphasizing both the importance of like first party data and the trends to that
Hmm.
like becoming more and more important. Curious to hear some of your like philosophy there and what you guys are doing to continue to try to like prepare for that world.
Yeah, I mean, it's been great with a tool like Hive that kind of, the way that it really is optimal is when like all as many systems that we're utilizing can all talk to one another, because ultimately like it helps us
Hmm.
build like a really good picture of who our audience actually is. What kind of music do they like? What kind of shows are they going to? Do they like a specific venue over another?
Hmm.
That helps inform us. Even past like a marketing conversation, but also from like a buyer's conversation and booking, like
Yep.
those two departments talking about like when we have an opportunity at a show, it's like, hey, do we want to look at it at like a specific venue? And it's like understanding that, hey, like this audience type is really like comfortable with going to like this venue versus another. And like,
Yeah.
again, just really reemphasizing the idea of like how to build the experience is like people know what they're comfortable with. And we want to make sure that that's again a comfortable experience. So, like using it from that perspective, but also, even just from like a digital perspective as well. Like I handle and oversee all the digital marketing activations on the promoter end, and so seeing all the changes and moving towards more like AI learning,
Yeah.
from everything from Meta to Instagram to Google, et cetera. Really having ownership of your first party data has never been more important, so that we can actually, again,
Hmm.
it feels like it's more of a conversation with we're speaking directly to our fans, and so utilizing that, whether it's through like it's direct emails to people that bought for similar artists,
Yep.
or if they've gone to a show, like making sure, hey, we want you to know that your favorite artist is coming back, or somebody that you saw
Hmm.
maybe 5 years ago if you forgot, like, hey, they have a new record out, that you
Yep.
may not be aware of. And then also utilizing that like with the Meta audience sync tool through Hive has been, even just like shaving the minutes off of like doing a lot of that manual labor of like instead of having to scrub through like infinite CSV files and
Yeah. Yeah.
buyer lists. Like it just makes it so much easier to be able to like create audiences that can again directly speak to people. So it's, especially, and going back to like the club conversation about like event discovery too, it's like sometimes it's tough to, we work with agencies and management all the time, and like trying to have like there's twofold. It's like having the right creative to help sell the story, but then also knowing who you're telling that story to. And so
Hmm.
like kind of when both of those pieces align, when we can identify like, okay, you like we have this artist and we know they're similar to artist A through D, and we've done, a handful of those similar artists, well, then we can then build a campaign around,
Yep.
that unique creative that really helps sell that artist to somebody who may not be aware of them. So,
Yeah.
being able to utilize our first party data in that sense, but also in the sense of,
Hmm.
just again, just general communication to our patrons. Like if there's opportunities to, to let them know like, hey, we have a great VIP opportunity, and to be able to do like a quick SMS update, or even just, event changes all the time. That first party data, being able to like actually communicate with them and
Yeah.
pretty damn quick real time of being able to push out like
Yeah.
a, hey, extra, like an extra, we have extra early entry tickets that just opened up, or hey, like there's an
Yeah.
exclusive meet and greet after the fact, or even just like a, hey, we pushed back doors by half an hour so that you have extra time to either go grab a bite or do something else. Like it's just having that ownership of first party data and being able to actually utilize it in an effective
Totally.
tool is has been like game changing for us.
How do you see the channel mix and like your budget mix shifting over time in the coming years as you lean more and more and like build more of that first party asset? Like, do you think you'll see less budget going to paid or
It's really tough. I mean, I think we're always trying to figure out, like everybody's always trying to find out like what's the new like buzzy product or buzzy thing. And like, we're really just trying to find like where the communities for each artist are. And like what we've noticed that I mean obviously, and I also think that that conversation, it's really market dependent as well of like, what does the city makeup look like? Like we're in Pittsburgh, PA. It's 350,000 metropolitan, and probably about an extra 600,000 plus in like the surrounding greater Pittsburgh region.
yeah.
We still have a big radio listenership here. So like radio's still relevant. Our big station is a classic rock station here. And so like we still find that there's still some successes in some traditional media buys, but I mean, again, we've been obviously over the last handful of years, it's been moving a lot more digital. But
Yeah.
also in the same sense of like, looking at things like a Reddit, for example, where like people are really like being more communal and like having more like conversational pieces that are actually like around specific topics versus,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
um, some platforms that are just more, it's tougher to really gauge who's there and what they are speaking to and who they're speaking to.
Hmm.
But at the same time too, it's like I've been, even just looking more, and again I keep using the word experience, but like community, like experiential like community activations and things like that, where it's like, if I know that, hey, we're doing this really cool horror film that has like a live orchestra behind it, like we want to make sure we're connecting with like the indie theater community, and so like utilizing a lot more dollars
Yeah.
towards like actual community partnerships and being able to like blend with the right audiences has, again, it's proven to be, pretty successful, I think, for us. But
Yeah.
it's
That makes sense.
we're in a constant, I think we're in a constant state of, evolution and trying and like kind of throwing shit at a wall and see when it sticks. And you know, I think that that's always gonna change, because we're also in a world where especially from the club and theater world, like we're trying to really build like what that value is for the customer that's coming through the door. And like again, it's like it's really hard when you have, a arena show where people are willing to spend, $500 versus like how do you convince them to spend $25 on a show that like
Hmm.
maybe I'm biased, but I'm like I think is like way cooler, and more intimate. So we're always kind of reinventing and reshifting and trying to figure out how to, best utilize like the paid dollars, as well as also again like just continuing to build the brand and continuing to,
Yeah.
be an outlet for like artists, more like artist discovery.
As you're trying to dig into that like audience data to come up with targeting and campaign ideas,
Mhm.
I'm curious if there's like questions you find yourself asking over and over again that you wish you could get out of the data that you can't. Selfishly
Ye-
asking because would love to know if we can help with it. But
Yeah. I mean, it's really about like, for me, it's like about getting that 10,000 foot view of like just what the buyer, like who they are, and like what is their circumstance, or what is their like of
mhm.
understanding like beyond just the, what kind of music do you listen to. It's like, what kind of, and I think we kind of take the same approach with the, like from the artist perspective as well, because I think having it like, again, understanding who the artist is,
Yep.
like what are some of the things that they identify with, that ultimately like their audience identifies with. Are there
Oh,
like
interesting.
are there social causes that we're like not aware of? Like again, we find that like a lot of artists, when we can find like an artist is like a big fan of like they love adopting they love adopting rescues, and it's like let's partner with an animal shelter and make
Hmm.
sure that like
Hmm.
we're attaching that artist to that brand so that there's like now local familiarity.
Yeah,
But also like
it's a great
10,000
idea.
foot view of like, what does the financial circumstance look around like a specific artist, because that, or around a certain audience, so that
Hmm.
we can understand like, hey, basically like one of the things that I think we're trying to understand is like what is, I guess from my perspective, is like what is preventing the buyer, or what is the roadblock from the moment we put a show on sale to like that person buying, and especially like is it a price resistance? Is it, are there other things happening in the area that like we may not be aware of? Are there other circumstantial
Hmm.
situations that like we're just not aware of that really help us understand like
Hmm.
either why is a person or why aren't they, jumping on an opportunity? And so um it's really about just getting like the 10,000 foot view of like A, like the community and what's happening around us, and B, the audience and like what they're engaging with. So like
Yeah.
it's always great when we work with an artist team that, they have kind of they have that 10,000 foot view of their artist, where they know like, hey,
Hmm.
we have a segmented demographic breakdown of like what our audience is, what their household income is, um, what kind of artists that they identify with, what kind of brands do they identify with, what kind of websites do they engage with, um,
Hmm.
like comedian, like if it's a comedian, like are they engaging with, Funny or Die and CNN and NPR and um, ESPN, like, and just having like a better, like full scale perspective of like who that audience member is, and where they're like, again, like where they're like how they're spending their time, and what they're spending their time doing.
How often are the artists coming with those insights with their teams?
They've been coming a lot more lately than I guess over the last like 5 years. It just depends on, again, like the data that is available, like even to the artist. Because again, like I
Yeah,
think at the end of the day, like that
they
conversation,
probably they have it even harder than you guys, like to get
yeah,
data. Yeah, yeah,
and it's a constant, I mean, it's a constant battle of like just again trying to figure out how to identify like who that super fan is, and like, but we're also in like a
hmm,
really great space of like in the digital era of like, again, that really helps us open the door to like how to understand our audience better. And again, like like even just understanding like fan club pre-sales and like how artists are engaging with their fans. And I think that um, I think that having that ability to make it more collaborative, because again, at the end of the day, it's like we want to be good partners as a promoter with management, with agent,
yeah,
with label, like having an understanding of, you know, um, what was I looking for? Like having an understanding of, it behooves everybody to kind of have all this data kind of pulled together so that we have a better
yeah.
understanding of like we want the room to feel full for the artist, and we want the artist to have a great show and play in front
Yeah,
of a
of
packed
course.
house. So having as much, of that, maybe not necessarily first party data, but having as much just of an oversight of, or an
Yeah.
overview of what that picture looks like, I think is, even just it was like some of the conversations what we try to have is ultimately like we want to have a full scale perspective of like, hey, is the artist touring on a record? Are they touring on a new single? Do they have new
Yeah.
content out? Like, are they doing any press runs? Like, we always try to have those conversations so that, we can A, help support the artist and help amplify that locally, but B,
Hmm.
also, try to piggyback on that a little bit to make sure like, hey, there's this artist that like Fridays are like huge for us because we want to know like, hey, what of our artists have new records coming out so that we can try to highlight that, and then also build
Yeah.
targeted campaigns around that too. So like that, again, it's like all about like trying to find like the right moment to try to activate on something, and sometimes we have to like reshift when we find out like, okay, halfway
Yeah.
through the artist has like a series of new singles coming out. It's like, cool, well, how do we support that?
Hmm.
Because ultimately, like at the end of the day, like we can tie that back to the show, we can tie that back to the experience.
It's got to be some way to like help lay those data sets on top of each other easier.
Even just like like an inputted tool of like, again, just like key target dates and things like
Yeah.
that. Um, like we just basically keep like an internal schedule of kind of like everything that we can see. And sometimes, like obviously, we're promoted that does 750 shows a year. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of
It's a
impossible
lot.
to grab. It's impossible to grab everything. So it's kind of about like what are the tools that we have that talk to one another that we can figure out how to make sure like, all right, we know that 10 of our artists that we have coming up with shows like all have albums coming out. How do we do something
Yeah.
collaborative or something to highlight all of that? Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and then again, like the
Are
other
you guys getting word on that early, or you're just kind of waiting to see when albums come out?
some it depends. Again, I mean, some teams, some artists have large teams around them that are able to triage that, and they're able to kind of
Hmm.
help flag that. A lot of others, we're working collaboratively to try to figure all that stuff out. Because again, like on the independent side of things, like you're really operating in a different space, and
Hmm.
just the thing that we try to preach as much as possible is just as much communication as humanly possible, so that we can make sure that again, we have as much insight as we can, as much as the label does, as much as management does. Because again, like it's
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like it's all an ecosystem. Like we want to see the artists, we want to be able to elevate the artist and elevate each other's businesses. And that helps when we have consistent communication, and just having that kind of notice. And again, like
For sure.
sometimes it's just a matter of like, hey, we have to get creative and like build assets off of whatever you guys have available. But if an artist is able to provide something that's catered and
Sure, it helps a
targeted,
ton.
like
Yeah.
we'll use it.
Totally.
It's all about how we can collaborate versus it's a we mentality, not a you versus me mentality.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. There's a lot to think about in there. Might follow up with you on
Yeah.
some stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll take us a bit of a different direction. You earlier were talking
Sure.
about it's like, you know, getting maybe not harder, but yeah, harder to like sell out
Yeah.
at least certain rooms. I'm curious what, without getting into too much of like politics or the economy, what do you think's
Yeah.
behind that? What do you think some of the bigger challenges for the independent space are today?
Yeah, I mean, it is, we had just such a boom out of COVID where people were just like really itching to get out of the house and kind of experience those things that they weren't able to for a year or two.
Hmm.
Um, and I think there's just there's a groundswell of just artists that are out on the road, and I think that mixed with, again, like I know he's not to dive too much into it, but I mean we're in a state where it's just really hard
You
to
feel free.
it's we're in a state where it's trying to build that value proposition for people, I think is more important now than ever, and like being able to be a like trusted source. Like I look at folks that are filling rooms, and it's they have like like people in their community know who they are. They have like faces to the name, and like they can rely on them, and they know like the experience that they're getting out of it. So like it's
Hmm.
either and that mixed with folks that are willing to spend $500 on an arena show, and then that eliminates their ability to purchase for future shows. That
Hmm.
mix, and there's also other external things that we grapple with every day. I mean, on the secondary ticketing end, like that's another issue that we deal with all the time, especially like in some of our theaters. Trying to suss out like any like the deceptive ticketing practices that ultimately
Yeah.
makes it a much harder buying experience, and it makes it much more of like a distrustful experience from the buyer's perspective. When
Yeah.
we've seen it time and time again where like we somebody comes to a show and they're like, hey, I paid $200 for these tickets, and the person ahead of them finds out that, oh, I paid $40 for this ticket, and it's because
Fuck.
we're constantly getting beat out by secondary ticketing agencies marketing practices. And
That sucks.
That's made it a tougher, a tougher process for the buyer. And also ultimately at the end of the day, like that just makes it a lot harder for the buyer to, trust the process of even buying a ticket.
Hmm.
So, there's a multitude, I think there's a multitude of reasons of why it's getting tougher. But at the same time, like again, I have to keep going back to it. It's like, how can you build the experience that people feel the value in what they're purchasing a ticket to? Like they know, like by going to this historic theater that they're going to have like a top tier experience, or by going to this punk rock club, like they're going to get one of the best. They're going to get one of like the best, most intimate shows of their life. Like I think one of the things that's like really, we work with a 300 they have a handful of rooms actually in their building. It's a 300 cap and an 800 cap upstairs, and
Hmm.
um we do like a lot of like metal and hardcore there. And it's funny when we find like, when we tell people, hey, this is a no barricade show, people go crazy over that. Like they think they like that mentality of like be in that space of, being able to mosh around, and
Yeah.
like that's part of the experience there, and like people love that. So like just again having a better understanding of what people want and don't want, and how to make sure, again, like I think it's really important for I've always said this too, like I think it's really important on the marketing side to be incorporated in some of the booking conversations, because ultimately like it's our job at the end of the day to help sell that experience. And if we're putting the wrong show in the wrong room, or
Hmm.
not being able to flag something early on of like hey, there's a similar show happening maybe like 3 days before, should we consider either
Yeah.
not doing it this time around, or should we consider a different avenue? I think that some of those early conversations are really important from the marketing perspective, because again, like it
Are you
just we're
guys, are you involved in that right now or no? Like
yeah, I think
you
it's one
are?
thing that I think it's one thing that yeah, because like from an internal perspective, I mean, like our booking and marketing team meets every week to kind of have these conversations to talk about,
Yeah.
what are some of the things we're working on, what are some of the struggles that we're dealing with, and just,
Mm.
leaving the ego out of the door, and like having honest and transparent communication about like, hey, like this isn't working for this reason, or, hey, let's look at this show is struggling. Like, can we look at the show to see like our tickets priced, like how our tickets priced comparatively in other similar
Yeah.
markets, and
Yeah.
just really having like some of those more like transparent and honest communications internally about like, hey, this
Hmm.
might not be working for this reason. Can we try to pivot to something else, or can we try to do something in a different way?
Yeah.
So really, I think that piece of it's important, because again, like we're, the rise and grind mentality is like very prevalent in the independent space, and like that's what we, it's what we do all day every day. And so I think that sometimes we're working hard, we're working fast, and if we don't slow down to have the conversations to figure out like where the issues are, and like what are things that we're
Yeah.
missing, like it's one thing that I'm very thankful and appreciative of our team for, being able to sit down and have some of these conversations about, what's working, what's not, how do we pivot, what are things to look out for, and just, you know build being as collaborative as we can.
Be a good partner. Yeah.
Even, I mean, even with the venues too. I mean, like again, being a promoter that doesn't own a room, we collaborate. Like I have weekly calls with a lot of our venues, and or calls on cadences with a lot of our venues, just to try to make sure like, hey, are we missing the marks on things? Are there things that we can improve better and be better partners? And how do we, again,
Hmm.
how do we build the experience better for our audiences?
I'm curious on that that secondary issue.
Hmm.
Are you guys doing anything to like proactively try to drive more of the sales to like known buyers? Like do pre-sales help with that? Or like are there particular tactics you lean on there? Or it's kind of like you just
It's
can't do
tough.
anything about it?
It's really, I mean, in reality, and again, not to really drive into the politics of it, but like until there's really like federal regulation around the secondary market,
Yeah.
it's really hard for us to be able to have a really solid course of action to be able to combat it. Like there's tactics that we can take on the ticketing end to try to combat it from happening in the
Hmm.
first place, from the transaction that happened on the first place, from a predatory resale perspective. But you know, bots are always going to find ways around it. Technology is going to always try to find a way around it.
Yeah.
So until really like there's federal legislation, or even at the state level, I mean, I'm in the state of Pennsylvania, and there's there's legislation around an anti-speculative ticketing bill, which feels like it's a no-brainer, right? Like if you don't have a ticket, you shouldn't be able to resell it. And we're still seeing that. And to like the pre-sale point too, it's like I've seen instances where, we'll announce on a Monday, the first pre-sale will be on a Wednesday, and Tuesday afternoon, I'll see on SeatGeek or Vivid Seats tickets available for instant delivery. And it's like,
Wow.
there's no tickets available.
Yeah,
How can something like that, happen? So, um,
that's crazy.
we're more in the space of like, how do we prevent it from happening in the first place versus trying to combat against it? Because otherwise
Just an arms race. Yeah.
we'd be spending thousands of dollars. Well, not, we'd be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars just trying to outrank them in SEO, and, for what
Yeah.
purpose? So really it's about, for us, it's about trying to educate the buyer as much as possible,
Hmm.
looking for reseller red flags, trying to, make sure that, the trusted sources are from the venue, or from the artists, or from the promoter.
Hmm.
And again, like going back to the earlier point of like being the trusted face, like being the trusted brand, like you want people to feel like they can trust you. And so as
Hmm.
much, direct communication and just transparent communication about like, hey, if it doesn't look or smell like us, like it probably isn't us. So it's you know just as much as that, like it's an educational, it's definitely been like an educational process over the last, you
Yeah,
know
I'm sure.
2 or 3 years or so.
I'm curious to get like down into some like tactical stuff if that's cool.
Yeah.
Like what kind of tactics do you like to use? We were having a conversation earlier about like it would be helpful if there were systems that could like bubble up when a show was not trending in the right direction or was distressed. And I totally agree with that. And I think there might be some cool stuff we can help with there. But once it's on your radar and you know a show is like distressed, what types of strategies do you like to use there? Are there like kind of go to things that'll help move tickets last minute that you guys lean on?
I mean, yeah, it's one of the things that we've tried to, and a lot of these are like more like interpersonal relationships. And so like we really try to lean on, some of our community partners, and like, how do we make sure that,
Cool.
like maybe we're missing folks that didn't know about the show. And it's like, again, I think it's really important at the onset to like have an understanding from the artist perspective of like, hey, what are the things that they're passionate about? What are the things that they align themselves with, so that we can make sure that we're building, solid grassroots partnerships around those
Yeah.
conversations. So that when it comes time to, you know, if we have I call it the oh shit button, is when we have to hit the oh shit button. Like, what are the things that kind of trigger from that? And
Yeah.
it changes with every show. I mean, one of the things that we've been trying to think about, maybe not as much as like when you hit that week out and you realize like you still have like a lot of inventory to move.
Hmm.
How do you flip the mentality of like getting people to buy early? So like, how do we incentivize things like early bird versus discounting the week out from the show? Because then does that train the
Yeah.
buyer
Yeah.
to like they're waiting to the
Wait.
last
Yeah.
minute? um so there's like strategies around that we've been kind of like ideating around.
Hmm.
But at the same time too, it's like, we'll try to do things like, if we have, again, like we try to go back to like our customers, right? Of like, the one thing that Hive's been really helpful for too has been like, we'll go say we have a show that's that's not performing well. We'll go to our top, 5% of buyers or something like that, maybe top 2% of buyers from that venue, and just say like, hey, we appreciate and value for coming out. Like, have a night out on us. Like, just
Cool.
let us treat you out to a night of music that maybe you wouldn't discover otherwise. And again, just
That's
really try
awesome.
and like, how do we like, again, sometimes I want to get a little more ahead of that, where we're doing that more at the onset of like building that in. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, hey, we want our people in the room, and we want them talking about the show, because it's, what
Yeah.
we've seen is like we've had a real kick-ass band on stage. Maybe they're not as discoverable yet, and somebody hasn't heard of them, but because we got them in the door, and like we maybe we'll change it to a free show and just try to pack the house. But we've seen that when we do that and we bring that same artist back, like those people are willing to pay the what if it's 10, $15 the next time, because
Yeah.
we took them at, like, we took care of them, and they've had such a great time that they want to come back. So there's that. There's also, again, trying to like build communal relationships of, how do we get other local area businesses that are around, like that communal ecosystem involved? Because it's not just about the venue that's in the area. It's like, hey, maybe there's a brewery, a couple blocks
Yeah.
down. Maybe there's a record store nearby, and we can partner with them on some sort of like pre-show listening
Activation or
experience
yeah.
and an activation ahead of time. And just, again, just building that experience. So like trying to look at what's also around the building, and how do we become good community partners with them. So
That's awesome.
we've done things where, I'll find like a blues show that's underperforming for whatever reason, and working with our local blues society and making sure that, like, if they have volunteers, like, bring them out. Like, let's have a good night, and just, instead of it being all doom and gloom because there's nobody in the room, like, let's just pack the house and just
Yeah.
like give people a good show. Because at the
I
same
love
time too,
that.
like, we want to make the room feel good for the artist too. Like, we don't want
Yeah, of
an artist
course.
to play to an empty room. That's I've been in those shoes before, and played in a band
Not
for 10
fun.
years, and I played to just the bartender. It's like, it's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure.
Nobody wants that.
I'm unfortunately not very musically inclined, but I'll take your word for it.
Not I look at a guitar that's just getting dust on it, so you
Yeah.
know I'll keep admiring it from afar now.
Someday you can teach me. Cool, man. Well, I know we're getting up on time here. I feel like we could keep going for like another hour. Maybe we'll have to do a part two
Yeah.
here. But I really appreciate you hopping on with us. So
Yeah,
maybe
likewise. And
we'll.
again, like, I appreciate all that y'all have done at Hive. Again, like,
Oh, thank
it's
you.
helped us a ton, man. And it's definitely, I always look at, how do we keep building efficiencies in an industry that just literally never sleeps. And so, like, it just, it helps us so much. I appreciate it a ton.
That's really nice to hear. Thank you. We appreciate you guys. Keep the feedback flowing.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to Hive for more backstage conversations with the people shaping event marketing. To explore our super awesome marketing platform, book a demo using the link in the description.